Hey there, and welcome back to the Celebration Pro podcast. It's me, your host again, Carin Hunt. And today we have a fellow wedding planner on. I'm so excited to have someone who understands all the things that have to do with the wedding industry. And we have the lovely Renee Sabo. And Renee she's a luxury event planner. She's also a designer, podcaster, speaker, mentor, and creative entrepreneur. She has a passion for educating fellow creative event professionals looking to uplevel their wedding business. She believes in cultivating a strong community within the wedding industry, a space where professionals can continue to grow creatively, professionally, and ethically. And I almost threw in there collectively, and I think that works too. Some of her accomplishments include features on the Boston Globe, New York Times, and Best of Boston magazine. And Renee, just going through your bio, there are so many parallels. And I think that, everything that you have to offer our audience today is going to be so relatable to them. And we can't thank you enough for being here.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Carin. I'm really excited. Anytime I get to sit down with a fellow planner too, it's like the best conversation. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I think we've both been looking at our calendars, kind of looking forward to this date. It's been a long time coming. So I would love for you
Definitely.
to tell our audience, our listeners, a little bit more about who you are and what it is you do.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the wonderful introduction. It kind of gives people some insight, but I'm a wedding planner and designer first. My company was called Urban Soiree, and I actually just rebranded and started a new partnership called Bachare Events. So that is very new news in June. And so I'm very excited to continue my career as a planner and designer, but now with a business partner. So that will be nice. And then I also have a podcast called the Confetti Hour, and I
Mm-hmm.
also utilize it for these great conversations and just like, really, trying to talk about the things our community is thinking about and having like a safe space for all of us to just continue to grow and bond. I've learned so much from the people that come on my podcast. And so it's been amazing having that. And I also do mentoring and speaking for fellow wedding planners and wedding creatives in the industry. And so, I have two sides of my business and I really enjoy both. We were talking before we got on about how weddings here, where I'm based in Boston, are seasonal sometimes. And so for me, it's exciting because on the off season, I get to focus a lot on the education side of my business. And then with wedding season, it's just straight wedding season. So, it's a great balance for me over the years that I've cultivated, and I get to meet awesome people like you. So that's kind of my who I am and what I do.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm curious, becoming a mentor, how did your journey take you to becoming a mentor for the other professionals in our industry?
Oh yeah, so having the podcast opened up a lot of doors for me that I just didn't really expect. And so I would get people who were reaching out and wanting to, see if I had consultation hours or things like that. And I was honored. I didn't really have anything in place to be able to provide that service. So
Mm-hmm.
I started doing speaking, and then same thing for speaking. I was at the time the president of ILEA Boston, and now I currently serve as the president of WIPA Boston. So I'm a big, association girl. I've always kind of been in that networking community locally in New England, but I started to get requests to speak through both the podcast and being president of those chapters. And so, long story short, because I wanted to help fellow people that were reaching out. And I thought I really can contribute, and this could be an added revenue stream. I decided to form kind of a mentorship program in the off season where I have, like 10 to 15 topics that I can really help people with. And so it's a little curated. You could do long-term mentorship, which is, anywhere from 6 months to a year, or we can do kind of a one-time 3-hour session, but that's kind of how it evolved, just connecting with people and wanting to help. So,
Yeah. Well, and I ask you that because when I was a wedding planner, I'm retired from wedding planning now, but when I was a
oh,
wedding
that's
planner,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know the ins and outs. I remember it all very clearly.
You're on the other side. You're probably much more peaceful now. I'm just kidding.
I don't know if I'd say that, but
Yeah.
it was a lot of the other vendors and creative entrepreneurs just coming and like asking for advice and asking how we did certain things. And so I was curious. It
Yeah.
sounds like it was very similar. And then of course it's
Very
always helpful to be
organic.
part of the associations. And yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Great.
for me, it's the other, I guess the one thing I can add too is when I started this, I had mentors naturally from the jobs that I worked at, but
Mhm.
there was never there weren't podcasts, there weren't anything in the world to help people that are trying to get to the next level or just trying to grow, and be a better professional. You really only could depend on the people like at the jobs you were working on or those network groups. And so my old boss was very big on associations and kind of getting me involved because it was a benefit that she could offer me as an, employer with her.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like now there's so many options. And so it almost feels like that's kind of what we have to do for the next generation of event professionals. And so for me, it feels like not a responsibility. Like I enjoy it a lot. And I think it's important because without those people, I wouldn't be where I am. And then I'm constantly trying to stay
Mhm.
up on the next trends and all that too. So I learn a lot from my mentees and, it's a win-win all around, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I learned about associations and continued professional development in college, but not everybody
Yeah.
has an event
Had,
management degree in this industry, right? A lot of us kind of our
right.
passion grew from a different place, and being in the Keys,
Yeah.
kind of like, I mean, it sounds like it's very similar to your path too. We didn't have
Mhm.
access, it wasn't, we were not in a big city. We're in small islands where they're really, it's high
Yeah.
volume weddings and very low
Yeah.
volume of continued education. And we didn't even know what was possible because it just wasn't in front of our faces. And
Yeah.
so we're very lucky to have people like you who are sharing the wisdom and helping everybody grow.
And
So
likewise to you. Yeah,
yeah.
it is cool to see how far the industry has come. I mean, even in 10 years and in 20 years.
Oh
So,
yeah. Oh
I've,
yeah.
yeah, it's just crazy the growth. So, and I think there's so much more to grow. So I
Mm-hmm.
almost feel like people who aren't, well, if people are listening to this, you're already 10 steps ahead of people. But I think like it's almost a disadvantage if you aren't leaning into resources or growth because the industry is changing and you're going to be, personally, I think you'll be left behind and not as successful if you aren't kind of, trying to better educate yourself and grow.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, and stay with the times on everything. Absolutely. Well, I think this is a great
yeah.
segue into today's topic because
Yeah,
part
perfect.
of part of growing your business is having that strategy in place. And it's, strategy obviously has its clear benefits. And today we're
Mm.
going to talk with Renee about why it's important to prioritize processes within your business, and why is this something that specifically needs to be talked about to creatives, do you think?
Well, the first and foremost is that there are still people that don't have any process to their business. And I think it is coming from the planning side, you're probably going to smile at this, but it is really, really atrocious at this point if you don't have a process because everyone is, everyone has a different way of working. And until you come up with a professional way to work with other vendors and your clients, which means a process, you're kind of coming across as, I'll be honest, a pain to us other pros and the clients who just, want to be able to trust the team that they've hired. And the best way to do that is to stay organized and to really implement what that looks like and make sure that they understand what the process is with you. So for me, that's why it's so important. I think that as this industry keeps growing, it is showing the people who are professional businesses and who are not. Um, and I just yeah, it's almost like something you have to have at this point.
I mean,
But
there's an expectation at this point when you have
mhm.
a lot, the majority of the vendors grabbing onto CRMs and different automated tools and all of these things. And then if you show up to the game and you're still sending out, I don't know, Word documents, does that count? Or whatever it is
I'm
that's
even like, yeah, I know. And I can't wait to dive like more into, I definitely love the CRMs and I love everything that is available. I use so many different things, but I think that even if it is a Word document, like it has to just be organized and there has to be like a process
right.
for it, right?
Just
Like
well done.
I, which is, yeah, exactly. And for me, it's also comes from like a benefit. I know we're talking about like what are the clear benefits. For you, the clear benefits internally to stay organized, it allows you to offer a higher level of service, hopefully charge more because you're so organized and able to serve your clients easier and quicker. But also like it just helps with sanity for yourself. And you could also start delegating to a team. So there's like so many benefits, not just for your client, but internally as a business. Like, I don't think you can really plan to up level or grow without having these in place, you know?
Mhm.
So,
And I was just chatting with another fellow industry thought leader, and we were talking about how the benefits of it's basically planning ahead, right? Just making sure you have everything
yeah,
you need. And when you take,
yeah,
what is it? When you take 60 minutes to plan for your business, you save 12 hours of work ahead of you. And I was like,
crazy. So
how is
true.
that
Yeah,
like just run with that, everybody. Just run with that.
yeah,
Well, I know you're
it's
eager
crazy.
to get into
Yeah.
the meat of all of it. So what do you think are the first steps to take for the creative who might be feeling overwhelmed or disorganized? And what can we do to get them back
Mm,
on track? Do you think it starts with mindset or is it an action they should
mm.
take?
I love this question because I do think that there is like this perfect balance of mindset and action. I also, because I love how much education is out there, I do want to note that I feel like that there's some pressure as well. So sometimes people that gets overwhelming. Like, should I be using this? Should I be, for planners? Should I be on aisle planner? Should I be doing planning pot? Like, I see the forums, I see the group chats. I like love scrolling. I think the biggest like thing and first steps, like if I could sum it up and make it really clean and simple, is first just realizing that like you have your own, you have to kind of figure out that work for yourself and what process is going to work and what tools are going to help. And then like that mindset shift of just really being, uh, like you said, d- help figure out what those tools are that are going to save you time later and be open-minded. So that would be the mindset shift because, for me, I love social media. I don't personally have a very hard time posting and keeping organized, but I did finally break down and shift into like a Planoly or some sort of scheduling because it also saved me a lot of time with vendor tags and things like that. So,
Hmm.
I think it's kind of identifying that. And the best way you could do that is to start having SOPs for your business. So operating procedures, kind of shell out what are the actual action items you have to do to provide your service. And then you can look at it and say, oh, this could be automated, or this could go smoother, or, this might help. So, for instance, as a planner, my team and I have an internal facing project management, which we use Monday, and that breaks down everything from start to finish planning a wedding. Of course, things are going to get customized a little bit per client, but for the most part, it always gives us like we're all on the same page about what's next as a team. And then we have an external project management tool for our clients, and we use Aisle Planner. And for them, it's kind of like a dumbed down version, an easier version for my very
Hmm.
busy clients who work so much. We put everything that they could possibly need, like you could do this with a Google Drive. You could give a client a folder, anything. They're going to ask you, you probably get the same questions over and over and over again. Those are the perfect things to put in whatever that portal looks like for your client. You can tell I'm getting excited because I like use my hands now when we're
I love
talking.
it. I
Um,
love it.
but I think those are like the first big steps. Like what are clients asking of you a lot? And what is your actual process of delivering your service? So for a photographer, you may have 3 touch points, and for you, it's sales to welcoming them, and then maybe you check in again in 6 months and provide some resources, and then the final detailing, connecting with like the couple or the planner. So, what does that look like? How do they have access to your tips or your resources? How are you going to remind them of those upcoming payment due dates, or the photo list that you need? So I think if you really just take a look at your operating, process, like what you need, then you can actually start to get organized. And step one for me is actually shelling out standard operating procedures. It can be simple. It could be in a Word doc. That's what mine are in. So, but I think until you feel really confident with your process, you're going to seem disorganized to other people. Like, I think there's just this, like, calmness and confidence when you just like know exactly what you have to offer and how it's
Mhm.
going to be offered. And a client will not question you because you're like, you already explained it. I told you you'd get this check-in at 6 months and you'll get this here. So, um, yeah, that's kind of where I would
Yeah.
start.
And as a reminder to our listeners, this doesn't only make you look good to the client, it also makes you look good to the vendors. And remember, like, the
Yeah.
power of referrals. Oh my goodness. If they love working with you, our outlines were like 10 pages long. They were
Yeah.
a Word document, and everyone loved them because it had a very detailed, like, table of contents. It was the same every time. It was very consistent and very branded, and everyone knew what was going on. And it was CYA for us as planners, because something goes wrong, of course it all comes to us. But the other part that I took from that too is, when we hear SOPs, like, that's not sexy, unfortunately. Like, to me,
No,
I'm like,
it's
oh,
not.
corporate SOPs. But it could
I
be, like you're
know.
saying, as simple as a Word document, or even sketch down a flow chart. Where are you starting?
Yeah.
And then where does your client
Love
journey
that.
end? And what is everything behind that has to support? So if you're more of a, like, draw it out kind of person, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see I draw it all out behind me.
Yeah. I
But
love that.
so yeah, do what works for you, and just do a brainstorm session, and then there's your
Yeah.
SOPs. Simple as that. Yeah.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be, a template off the internet that says standard operating procedures. Now, I'm very type A because I'm a planner, so we do have that. But I will say that it's kind of this, like, just start, like, just get the bare bones and then keep adding to it. Like, when you have that off season and you have, a little day to just update business things. I mean, mine has just continued to grow and get more organized over the years. And I really just started with like the bare bones of what I needed to like operate. And then
Mhm.
you can just keep adding it. My team changes it. They don't like what I do sometimes, and they ask if they can update the templates. And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, I want that. I love that they want to take charge and help continue to grow. Like, I just think what's happening 5 years ago probably has changed, now. So, like, of course, like, you're going to keep revisiting this, but you should just have like one designated way of doing it. And that way you can just keep growing. Another tool that I learned from being in associations that is really helpful, if you want to create kind of like a strategic plan for your business, you could include some of these ideas. And again, it could be on paper, you can write it out. But I usually write out in the beginning of the year, kind of like, what are the things I personally like to do? And what are the things I like don't really enjoy doing but have to be done? And then I kind of look at like creating a process and outsourcing those things that I hate. That's like really like a big thing I do. So yeah, because like, if you love doing the editing for your videos or something like that, you're not going to want to outsource that, but maybe you could outsource invoicing and or sales, like in terms of people like the CRM helping to send
Mhm.
information at first. So, there's just little ways for you to personalize it. And it really is so specific to the business or the vendor. Even if you work for a corporation, you like a hotel, I had my own processes when I worked for a hotel, and that
Mhm.
may not have worked for the past sales manager. So yeah, it's like little ways for you to make it your own and not feel so overwhelmed that you have to have some perfect 60-page document from the very beginning.
Yeah. Your whole business plan. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think that's great advice, and I do the same. It's like, what can we delegate? What can we automate? What can we what can we do to just
Yeah.
make things a little bit easier? That's been a really big topic. Like, it seems like no matter what topic we talk about here on Celebration Pro podcast, automation, like somebody brings it
Automation
up
comes up.
every time. It's like
Yeah.
having a team
I
member because it's just happening in the background. It's great. It's great.
It's amazing. Yeah. And it's
And it
funny because
allows you
I
to
know
like
we'll
have
get,
an event and be at an event and know that like an email is going to go out, and you don't have to send that reminder, or you can go on vacation and have your business doing what it needs to do while you're gone for a few days, which is great.
I
It's awesome.
know it's amazing. Yeah. No, I love that. And the one thing I'll say too is that there are like always cons, I would say too, to stuff like this. And so I'm always trying to look at that too. And for me as a planner and the market that I serve, I deal with a lot of people's like automations and forms. And
Mm,
I have to have a conversation with them at the beginning. Like, I want to be able to give you what you need. And also, I need to, we need to work together on this process. So, having like this understanding that our processes are maybe a little different and having a conversation at the beginning about how are we going to work, just because, for instance, I would prefer that, say, the band or the entertainment group only emails me the forms, because I have my own process with them. I give them a little entertainment homework 6 months out, they start working through all of it, and then I fill out all the forms for their vendors. So I think it's like also really important to note that, like, while you need to be organized and have your process, you also have to be a little self-aware that you're not the only partner in the wedding process, and you need to be able to not overwhelm the couple or the people you're working with. So I usually just have like a conversation at the beginning of like, so what do you guys, what do you normally need, or what do you expect? And even if it is something where you require the client to get it, at least give the planner or someone a heads up, so that way I can have them prep that info and they aren't like
right.
freaking out that they got this form. And I'm telling you, it sends everyone over the edge when they
It
get these
does.
forms. And like, I hate them. I actually really, really, truly hate all the forms when you're working with a full service planner. But I am so respectful about other people's processes that I will continue to deal with it, because I don't want to mess anyone's process up. But I will say that it really depends on the types of weddings you're servicing, the types of clients, and I see people evolve their business based on markets. Like, when they grow from a wedding company that's taking on more volume, and then they kind of get more into like maybe a higher budgets, less of a volume, I see them start to remove some of those CRMs except for contracting, because they're working with the full service planner. So I
Yeah.
also think you have to be like a little aware of that might be a
Yeah. Do we need to put the white gloves on and do things a little more handheld, or does automation fit the bill?
yes.
And I would you agree or have thoughts around, you as the wedding planner, you're the one making sure everything is going smoothly. So you're touching everything around the event. Would you agree, for those listening who are not wedding planners but are working with wedding planners, to maybe get to know how the lead of the event runs things and then follow their lead, rather than the wedding planner having to adjust to everybody else's process for every event?
I will say that that is what stands people apart in my eyes working with a vendor now, with the clientele that I work with, because I feel it's very respectful of the fact that I am the lead of these projects. My clients and I speak probably about 6 hours a week, maybe less, depending on where we are in the process. But they typically hire a planner because they don't want to be bogged down by the details. And so,
Mm-hmm.
then bogging down the planner with the details is also very stressful. Like, we are experienced, and we for the most part know everything you need. But we do, appreciate checking in on that stuff. So I think finding like a custom way to work with the people that you work with all the time, it sets you apart for sure. people that have a process that is not very flexible and it doesn't work with my clients are typically the first to for us to not consider moving forward working with in the future. And that's just
Right.
because the way our clients come to us first usually, or the venue, but they when they're coming to us, it's because they like our process and they want that experience that we're selling. So if we have a vendor who will not kind of fall in line with that, it's kind of just business at that point. Like our processes
Right.
don't mesh. So why
Right.
would we work together? So I do think there is this like you kind of have to know where you're at on the supply chain, like not being rude, but like I'm the one that no one other than like a venue or past clients, I very rarely get referrals from other vendors at this point. It's usually like clients that attended past weddings or venues.
Mhm.
So I'm a little bit more like you should adapt to my processes because I'm the one giving you referrals. But I'm very nice about it and happy to come up with a happy middle ground. So, but I do think
Yeah.
like if you want that like honest opinion, like with the question you just asked, that's how I feel about it. So
Yeah. I mean,
like
it's like,
the best partners are ones that understand that. So
yeah, it's like if you have I'm just going to throw out, you have a DJ and the DJ works with 50 weddings that year. That's 50 planners, right? And maybe it's the same planner multiple times. And then you have a planner
mm,
who's working 50 weddings. They're working with hundreds of vendors. Like, and I'm just
oh
kind of
yeah,
like putting that out there for the listeners. Like, that's what the planners are handling. And so what can we do in our
yeah,
processes to help their job go smooth, because in the end it goes smooth for the client.
yeah.
And on the other end of that too, just with the referrals, I would have people come and say, Carin, where do we get referrals? Like, who do we go to? And I said, start your relationships with the
Mm,
venues and the planners, because that's typically where a client's going to go to first.
yeah,
And so you're absolutely right to
definitely.
say that's where the referrals come from. And it's important to understand it.
Yeah, it definitely.
Yeah. So I have one more question for you, and then we'll get into a little bit of
Okay.
fun Q&A to get to know you better. When we're
Thank
talking,
you.
a lot of this we've talked about is for maybe the solopreneur, like just a smaller business. But as these businesses do take on processes and become more thoughtful around that, what are some of those markers that they should be aware of as their business matures?
Mm.
And what should they do maybe to think about like shifting their structure and the strategy?
Yeah, oh, that's a great question too. And I think that it probably does look a little different depending on the size of your company. Like I could see, catering company versus a planner being a little different.
Right.
But I think the biggest marker that I would listen to the people that are helping you. I'm a small team but I do have three people that help me part-time. And then I have contractors on the wedding day. And it's just super important to connect as a team and hear what's working, what's not working. My team the other day, we were talking about, do we really need paper, printouts for everything anymore? Or do we need to start to consider, onboarding like iPads, like small little like iPads, because it's just getting to the point where we need them hanging on us. Like we don't have time to like be shuffling.
Yeah.
And it's just down to that. Like for me, that's where I'm like, oh, I think my productions have gotten a little bigger and no longer do they want to shift through, it used to be like a 10-page timeline. Now they're like 30 pages and they are thinking, Renee, I really don't want to carry that wad of paper around all day. And so that's just like a really small example. But I would say that you really can notice those markers is when you're starting to see like the people that you work with or even your clients asking for things like, do you have this? Do you have this? Like that's a good indication of something that could be automated or organized. And you're going to continue getting the questions. So I would save any resources you think that are helpful to a client. I just make them a part of their portal, and you just continue to see that you need to grow because they'll start asking for it. So
Mhm.
and then another good indicator is obviously if you are so swamped and you are burnt out and you're starting to feel like you need help. I think no matter what job you're in, whether you work for a large company or not, I think you need to stay tuned to that. Because I would assume that anyone you're working for, or if you are an entrepreneur, your clients and you wouldn't want you feeling that way. And so it needs to be looked at. Like you need to figure out why are you so overworked, and like figure out the process for that. Whether that's hiring people, raising your rates so that you do less events, or, shelling out a system that's going to work for you. Like, for a caterer, I could think maybe you aren't doing tastings in your busy season because you're burning your whole staff out. So it's like things like that where you have to kind of figure out, constantly what's working, what's not. Because I think every year the industry shifts and we shift as, you know, professionals. So you're kind of like always adapting.
Yeah. Well, and I would assume that because you're a part of some of the prestigious associations in our industry, that you're also, you keep
Yeah.
your ears and eyes out, towards the other vendors in our industry who are doing well and growing and seeing, what they're doing in their business.
Yeah. Yeah. No, networking has been so helpful for just seeing what's worked for other people. I have such a close group of planners, and we're always venting slash, how do you do your ceremony outlines? Like it's just like really giddy, dorky stuff. But I definitely think finding that like community and tribe in your circle of what you offer is really helpful for you to kind of notice, oh, maybe we need to be up leveling or doing something different. So I love that point too. Yeah.
Yeah, love it. All
Yeah.
right. Are we ready for some quick Q&A at the end here?
Love it. Yeah, let's do it. I love it.
So this is a new question. So I'm curious, do you have a signature color or a statement piece, and what does it signify?
Ooh. Well, my signature color is definitely blush, and it's not shocking because my current brand had blush in it. My new brand does not, so that was a little surprising for
Ah,
people. But I do think that like it being my signature color, it does kind of signify and mean something to me. And I'm just really drawn to kind of like that very feminine, old world, romantic feel. And I think blush for me is really important. That kind of emulates that feeling. So a lot of my weddings also, have that. My own house, I have soft palettes and things like that. So I think it does kind of represent what I love, which is nice. So, and it's like a common thing with my clients. Like we all kind of relate to
embrace the
that. So,
blush.
um, and I know people are like, oh, blush, but for me, I'm also very picky. If I had to say the blush tone, my brand designer would laugh because I literally made her go off of my nail color that I like. So it's tiramisu for two. That is the exact blush. It is like a little hint of like beigey, and like it's the
Yes.
sandstone blush. It's perfect. Comes in dahlias and garden roses, and I'm very happy with that color blush. I don't like baby pink. So,
Yeah, that's yeah.
if we so that question actually really spiraled. I'm sorry. I guess I'm very particular
No,
about the color
spiral
blush.
away. I love it. Well, and I was going to say
It's
your
just,
personal site has blush on it. So the brand that's changing
yep. So
is your wedding
it's
business
going to be
brand
the,
colors are changing.
mhm.
What colors are we going to be
So urban.
at?
Oh, yes. Oh, so bachareevents.com. No one can say it yet, and that's okay. But it means to kiss, and it's lots of opulent greens, very like lush greens. But I did have an
Ah,
accent color. I do have blush as an accent color in there. So
okay.
my business partner and I, for the new brand, we wanted to kind of combine our personalities a bit, and I ended up being really excited for that brand and how it turned out. But it still has a lot of old world kind of European inspired feel to it. So not even European, we just very like travel oriented. And so
Love
we
it.
like textures and patterns, and yeah. So it's been fun. It's kind of like it's like my bold new chapter, I guess.
Yeah, well, I'm invested. I'm gonna be closely following
You're gonna
along.
have to Google it.
I
Thank
will.
you. Yes, but you'll see Urban Soiree they did like a sub brand for my Renee Sabo, which is my education
Yeah.
website. And all of that will continue to stay with the blush and
Mhm.
charcoal gray and beige and white. So that's going to be I think I have to keep it close to my heart. So it feels good to keep that as my
Yeah.
education home.
Beautiful. I love
Yeah.
it. I love it.
Who knew
And
I could talk so much about blush?
I
Sorry.
know. Oh, you could keep going. I know you could.
I know. I
Uh,
know I could. Yeah.
so in 1 year from today, if we're sitting across the table from each other, popping a bottle of champagne to celebrate something, what would that something be?
That is the sweetest question. I love it. First of all, I'm a big champagne. I'm a big bubbly person. I love
Yes.
Prosecco. So this would actually happen. I hope this happens. I think from 1 year from now, I would love to see my new business, Bachari Events, be as booked as my current business is this season. And so kind of seeing that shift and it being on its feet it would be really special to me. And that would be worth celebrating. So
Yeah, absolutely. We'll make it happen. 1 year from today,
sounds
we're
good
going to
to
be
me.
popping that bottle. Yes. And can you tell our
Perfect. I
listeners,
cannot wait.
yeah, can you tell our listeners where they can find you and if you have anything coming up or anywhere you want to point them to?
Oh, yes. Thank you for asking. So you can find me over at the Confetti Hour on Instagram. That's my education podcast, my education home. You can also follow urban_soiree, which is my industry planning, my current business, and then our new business at Bachare Events, which is, you'll have to link somewhere because it's a hard word, but it's, yeah, Bachare Events. And you can find me on my education website, reneesabo.com. And some fun things that just got added to the site is that I actually launched the new website in the winter of this year, the education site, and I added digital products on there for aspiring wedding planners. And so I actually am selling my planning process, which ties so beautifully in with this topic, which is why I wanted to mention it. And it's been so cool to see people start to purchase it. And actually, it's really like become helpful for them for their planning business. So if you're a wedding planner and you have any questions on that, feel free to email me. But that's kind of my current thing I have going on that I'm excited to be promoting. So yeah.
It's the best feeling to create a resource and like watch it transform people. It's, yeah, no, I love it. Beautiful.
It's so cool. Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of the goal, continue to add things to the shop, but being able to really, help with some of these processes that I've built. And it's a lot of the things that like my mentees have asked for over the years. So
Mhm.
creating it to help a larger audience has been really fun. So, and I'm always taking feedback on them too. So, I try to, hear if it's helping, if I need to add more, do less. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's really great. So
Well,
thank
that's
you
always
for,
fun
I love
too.
your podcast and
Yeah.
yeah, and
This
thank
has
you for
been so
having
much
me. This has
fun.
been so fun.
So much fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on, Renee. And I know that we'll be collaborating soon in the future.